I am testing a new application. Don't know if this is working. Uh, let's see if that is working. I don't know. I have no clue how this thing works. Uh, it's a new platform. I don't know. I am testing. Oh, okay. It is working, but I don't know why it's not connecting to YouTube, so I cannot see anything. Yes, notifications are going out. We are live. And nobody's here yet because notifications just are just going on. Um, I don't know. Oh my days, I'm live. I'm live. Hey, I am testing something. I don't know what I'm doing. I am using this new app. I have no clue what I'm doing, so bear with me. Hopefully, this one won't break. Hey, I'm here. Can you hear me? Is the sound any good? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm gonna be pressing a lot of new buttons today, and yeah. I have absolutely no clue what I'm doing, but hello, I'm getting let the people in. I think it's working. I think it's gonna work. I don't know. I don't know. I hope this works. I am trying. Can someone post on Facebook and Discord and everything? Yeah. I mean, this is a new platform. I have no clue about this platform. It's almost basically the same thing as the StreamYard one, but I have no clue how it works. How like absolutely crazy. I It's a completely new platform. I definitely. Denise, I don't know if I can highlight comments even, but I can see your comments. I don't know. Help me. This is a new land. Oh, private chat. No, I don't want private chat. I want normal chat. No, no, not normal chat. Uh, but I can see your comments. I'm over on the press the like button as well. I'm trying to do this. Josh, I'm gonna press a lot of buttons. This is a whole new system. Because you go, oh, found the chat. Hey, I found the chat. I found the chat. There he is. I can put chat on screen. I figured it out. Yes, I pressed the button. Buttons away. I know. I know. See, I can put chat on screen. That is awesome. Yay. If only I could figure it out how to move me on the screen because I don't want to be there. But um yeah, I don't know where to go because I tried to move this happened. So see, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm trying to figure it out this thing. I think Garden Bot is asleep. Bless him. He's so tired today. But yeah, um oh, thank you very much, Robert. I really, really appreciate that. But because the thing is, it would be too a shame that we're missing this trial today. At least we're gonna finish off the trial, the Megan Jackson trial. I need to rename the whole stream and the whole 9 yards. For the normal, so people can try to find us again. But at least we can hear, because don't tell or don't tell, or you know the hi, the conquer spirit of this case is on the stand right now, and we've been wanting to hear that the whole day. We've heard that the Daybell is guilty. She's gonna probably be sentenced at a later date. We'll find that sentence and everything, and we're gonna find out. But for right now, at least we can do something. And I'm just trying to rename this part two so people can find us if they are looking for something to watch that is not Daybell related, or is days over. So give me just one moment while I do that. Uh, just trying to do this. Hey, yes, Christopher, thank you very much. Jeremy, thank you very much. That is awesome. Thank you for coming back. Hey, Kara, good. Hello, welcome in. Hi. Thank you very much, Robert, for doing that as well. I really, really appreciate you guys. Press the like button, please. Share the channel. It does help the channel a lot, and to get out there after this. Oh, sentencing's 25th of July. That is perfect. Thank you very much for that, Denise. Really, really appreciate that. And Robert coming in with the thumbs up. That is awesome. I'm actually really liking this system, but I need to figure out how to move me. Oh, the Forest Nation, thank you very much for that. I don't know if it's gonna show up on my system, but thank you very much for that. Oh, it does. Yes, it does show. Thank you very much. Just popping in to give a like and show support. Thank you very much, Forest Nation. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a crazy day. I really do appreciate this. Amazing. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Oh, and she is ready to be sent back to Idaho. Bye bye, Laurie. Go back to Idaho. You don't belong here in Arizona. Well, no, I'm not that I'm in Arizona, but anyway, yeah. That thing is up there, the restream, because I have the free version of this system because I just found it. It's not, I'm not gonna pay for one while I'm paying for StreamYard, and I'm sure StreamYard is gonna come up soon. But thank you very much for that. Shall we get on with the trial? Huh? What do you guys think? I'm gonna put probably on 1.25 so we gets a bit sped up. So yeah, 5 for 5. Yeah, thank you very much, Forrest. Now, Nelson, I really really appreciate that. Thank you very much, and everyone press the like button, please. I know they got this for a minute. Hopefully, StreamYard will be back soon, but otherwise, we have this for now, which is gonna help us. At least is a solution that we have. Let's start with the trial, because yeah, let's get on it while I try to figure it out. This whole system. Please let me know if you can hear it, if the sound is good, and we'll go from there.
Between the first and the second witness, we will need to take a short break with Your Honor's permission because the second witness is the co-defendant and he needs to be transported from downstairs.
All right, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, let's bring the jury.
I need to learn all this new button system. So just hey, we can skip, skippy doo.
Thank you. Raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear only from the evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you. Understood. Get you to state your name and then spell your last name for the court.
Erica Dontell, Dontell.
No, Your Honor. Thank you. What do you do for a living?
I'm a teacher,
What grade?
4th grade.
Are you married?
Yes.
And what's your husband's name?
Christopher Dontell.
And is he the Christopher Dontel who is involved in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you two been married?
10 years today.
Do you have any children?
2.
And were you working back in 2019 into 2020?
Yes, I was in transition. I had left my in-school position, kind of transitioned to working at my sister-in-law's daycare when I was pregnant with Clayton. And then in 2020, I got hired at my virtual school that I'm at now.
Okay. And so let me talk about, well, I'll get to that in just a minute. Was your husband working at that time, Chris Dontel?
Yes.
What was he doing?
His main job was he has a facility maintenance company that does maintenance all up and down the East Coast, and then he also was a deputy coroner for Horry County.
What did he do prior to being a deputy coroner?
He worked for a body transport company that moved deceased bodies for funeral homes and for the county.
Now, thinking back to 2019 and 2020, you mentioned somewhere during one of your answers that you were pregnant with Blake. How old were your children? Or obviously, that's a span of time. How old were they at that time?
Clayton.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Sorry.
So Clayton was born in April of 2019. So he was up to a year, and then Charlie was 3 at the time.
How in 2019, 2020 would that have covered the time period of COVID?
Yes.
So tell me sort of what was going on in your marriage at that time.
We were experiencing some difficulties, just because like I said, I had left my full-time teaching job and went back to the daycare, which was a good pay cut. And then when COVID struck, then Chris's business with the maintenance company pretty much came to a halt because gas stations and things weren't open like they were. And so that just put a lot of strain on us, and he was working for the coroner's office, and we had our 2 very little kids at home, so he was on calls a lot, so it was just stress and not sleeping with a new baby, so.
So not an easy time.
Correct.
Okay. Do you know the defendant, Maegan Jackson?
Yes.
How did you meet her?
I met her for the first time at the celebration lunch that they had for Chris when he moved from the transport company to work for the county. And then shortly after that, she moved into our neighborhood and we became friends.
Do you recall about when she moved into your neighborhood?
I want to say maybe like December of 2019.
How far away from you did she move?
Just the back of the neighborhood, like 2 streets over.
Did you know if Maegan had any children at that time?
Yes.
How many children did the defendant have?
4.
Do you know their approximate ages? You don't have to be exact.
I think when we met them, 15, 13, maybe 9 and 8.
Prior to, let me back up. When you first met the defendant, were you and your husband and your children already living in River's Edge?
Yes.
When the defendant moved into your neighborhood, did your families start hanging out together?
Yes.
When the defendant moved into your neighborhood, was it just her and her children, or did someone else live there?
Yep, just her and the kids.
Did the fact that this was the period of COVID affect how much time y'all spent together?
Yes, because we would always get together and things, but then once everything shut down, we were at each other's houses every day. Either her kids were at my house or we were at her house every day.
Did you consider her a friend back then?
On this day 5 years ago, yes.
Do you consider her a friend now?
No.
You said that the defendant had 4 children. Did you know who their father was?
I knew of him, but I had never met him, but I knew his name was Greg.
So you never met him, you didn't know him personally?
But there was one time that I think he either picked up or dropped off the kids in the neighborhood, and we saw him in the car, but never corresponded with him or anything.
Did the defendant ever talk to you about her relationship with Greg Rice?
Yes.
Just a leading question. Oh, go ahead.
How did she describe her relationship with Greg Rice?
It sounded very toxic. She mentioned a lot of abuse, and she would say things like, "Oh, I'm going to go drop off the kids if I'm not back in an hour, or send somebody to look for me." She just made it seem very hostile.
When she mentioned abuse, did you ever see any signs of abuse on her? Any bruises, cuts, broken bones, or anything?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever see any evidence that he was abusive other than what the defendant said?
No, just what she said.
Can you describe for the jury how big or small a part of your life, your family's life, the defendant became during this time period?
Very big. She literally infiltrated our whole lives, from our kids to our finances to just all areas. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was waiting to.
Yeah, she just, like I said, we were together pretty much every day, and even if us grown-ups weren't, her kids were with my kids all the time, so.
Was the defendant working, where was the defendant working at this point?
Grindstaff Transport, she had taken Chris's spot.
Did that mean that the defendant and your husband worked together quite a bit?
Yes.
At some point, did you become aware that, or were you told that the defendant and your husband were having an affair?
Yes.
How did that information first come to you?
Through a text message from an anonymous website.
Okay.
indulgence, please? I'll give you. Hey, Your Honor, I do have an objection based on 404 report. See the document?
Well, I haven't moved to admit it yet. I was just showing you what I'm about to show her.
Okay. If you're just going to show me that, then it's 2 pages.
Your Honor, but actually, before I approach with this, when describing how big a part of your marriage the defendant became, you mentioned something about finances. Can you tell me what you meant by that?
Yeah, so there were multiple times when she would help us with like groceries. She would show up with groceries. She would go to like Sam's Club or BJ's or well, BJ's wasn't around there, Costco, and it was like whatever she bought for her household, she would double and buy for our household. And so she did that a few times. And then like if we would go out, she would like get the bill for us. And then it got to the point where by the summer of 2020, we were in talks of opening a summer camp because that's like my dream, and we were looking at properties and talking about pools, and so we just thought that we were going to be these business partners and open this camp that's nothing like anything that's in the area. So that's just.
Now, you said that the defendant had taken over Chris's job, so did you have some idea of the salary that she was probably making?
I would say he was less than 50,000, I think, when he was on.
Did the defendant ever give you any idea of how she was going to afford all of these things, or how she did afford what she actually gave you?
It was my understanding from what she told us that she had inherited money from her parents.
Now, going back to the anonymous texts, I'm approaching you with state security.
I'm sorry, we need to get a little instruction.
Thank you. If you can just look at that. And there's Are those some of the are those the anonymous texts you received?
Yes.
Was that on September 27th?
Yes.
So what did those texts tell you about an affair between your husband and the defendant?
But they thought I should know that my husband got somebody else pregnant.
Did it name the person?
Not at first, but then later on it said, oh, and the person was Maegan Jackson.
Was there anything about the way the defendant's name was spelled that meant anything to you?
Yeah. I just felt like it had been, I even told Chris, like, when it came through that, I was like, this has to be somebody that knows her because they spelled her name correctly, because I've never seen her name spelled that way until I met her. So I feel like if there's anybody, I mean, my name's Erica, and people misspell that all the time, so I just felt like you have to know somebody to spell their name correctly, so I knew it had to be somebody close.
Did the text give you any indication of how they were able to find contact information for you?
It said that they found my number on a website. It was like special ed or something, like an educational website.
Was there any information about any trips that correlated with any trips that you knew about that your husband took?
Yes, there was. It wasn't like a screenshot or anything, but it was just a flight number and then the 4 names of the people that traveled.
Who were the 4 names, if you remember?
Well, I know it was Maegan, Chris, Savannah, and I think Savannah's friend.
Do you recall what you were doing when you got those texts?
We had dinner plans with my friends, and Chris was on call, so usually when he was on call, we would ride to his car in case he got a call, and then me and the kids would just wait in the car, and so he had just gone into the house when the text message, the first one, came through.
Did they come through over a
Yeah,
period
they were
of-
spread out, yes.
So what did you do after you got that first one?
I texted him and I said, I need you to get somebody else to cover this call, and I said, we have a family emergency, I need you to come out here.
Did he come out?
Yes.
Did you confront him with the text or show him the text?
Yes, and because it was just from like the free site, he's like, I don't know what this is about. Like, this just must be somebody messing with us, but I'll deal with it after the call. Let me finish the call and we'll talk about it or deal with it.
At some point, did you and Chris talk to the defendant about those texts?
Yes. So once he, so while we were there waiting for him to come out, I got the text message about that he got somebody pregnant and where they found my phone number. And then once we started driving to the restaurant, because we were just like, we already had plans, and he was just saying like, I don't know who would do this. Like, who do you think would do this? And I was like, I don't know. This is not something I expected. And so we were still going to go to dinner. And then that's when the other message came through that said, and it's Maegan Jackson, and I have proof.
When you first got those texts, did you believe it, not believe it? What was going through your mind?
I was in shock. I was like, I don't know why, like, never saw that coming. I never would have imagined that we would be in this position. And that, so then when he seemed to not know anything about it, then we were just kind of like, okay, well, you know, it didn't seem real. Like, I couldn't believe that it was true.
And so did you and Chris talk to the defendant about these texts?
I believe that for the list of 404 paragraph that's responsible, Your Honor. So it's a proper question.
I don't know that. I'll allow.
Thank you. Did either you or did you and your husband together talk to the defendant about those texts?
Yes, once the message came through that said her name, that's when I said, we'll call her. Like, get her on the phone right now. And he did, on speakerphone. And I said, why am I getting text messages that say that you're pregnant, and who is saying this? And she was like, I don't know, I'm getting the kids in the car, I have to call you guys back. And then pretty quickly hung up.
Did you ever have another conversation with her about the texts and who might be sending them?
Later on, there was another time where we were talking, and then she said that she figured it was Greg texting it.
Greg isn't her husband?
Yes.
Did you, based on the text that you received, did you do any sort of research about anything?
Well, I looked up my own phone number because I didn't know what that website was, and I was like, well, how's my number just out for the public? And it came up that it was just my online resume from when I was trying to get a teaching job, so that's where it came from.
Did you look up anything else from the text or?
Well, later that evening, because, you know, we had gotten home from the restaurant and everything, and so then I just started looking up, like, just books about marriage, how to save your marriage, because I just felt like if this was even something that we were discussing, like, I mean, I knew we were having some stress and that things were, like, tight and just overwhelming at the time, but I didn't think that it would be to this point.
Did you do anything to prevent getting those types of texts in the future?
I tried to just block the websites, or the freetext.com, whatever, so that I couldn't get any more, because we talked to Maegan, she thought it was Greg, and so we just figured we'll just eliminate it being able to come through so that we could kind of work on it and distance ourselves from them, because she had mentioned to a few times in the past just that Greg, was very, like, not protective, that's not the word I want to use, but like anytime she got close to somebody, he would cause problems, and that he had accused her in the past of having affairs with like men from the funeral homes and things. And so
so what did you said you tried to block it, did you do anything else? Did you keep your phone?
Yes, well, I kept, because I had two phones at the time because I was in the process of trying to get a new teaching job, and so I had gotten a phone number with a South Carolina number because I figured if I'm applying for jobs, it might not look as good if you have an out-of-state phone number, because I've learned that it's all of who you know, and so I wanted to look like I was local and I was here and ready to work. And so at that time I had two phones, and then I just kind of stopped using that one. And then Chris did take my phone to see if he could track who or where the message came from with somebody that he worked with at the police department, I think.
Okay. Now you said the defendant had told you that in the past, Greg, I guess, was assertive if she got close to someone.
Yes.
How long had the defendant been in your life at that point?
So if that was September, just since she moved in December, so less than a year.
You testified that you spent quite a bit of time with her.
Yes.
Had you ever had any issues with Greg up to that point?
I mean, we had never met him or anything. Like, usually, just from the stories that she told us and how, you know, she claimed it was so bad, it's like, if we knew that he was coming to get the kids or whatever, then we would leave. Like, we're like, well, we don't want to be here, you know, and we would leave if we knew, or she would leave to take the kids where they had to go.
Other than the defendant's own words, did you ever have any evidence that Greg Rice was abusive or inappropriate?
No, just what she told me.
I'm approaching with what's been marked State's Exhibit 99. And there are some email addresses listed under the 2. Can you read the addresses out loud and tell me if you know who they belong to?
EricaDelangelo@gmail.com, Mrs. Dontel@gmail.com.
And whose email addresses are those?
Those are both mine.
Okay.
Colton's mama @gmail.com, Delangelo2@AOL.com, Colton's, sorry, I can't say, mommycoupons@gmail.com, and then Aaron Benford 53114@gmail.com.
Whose email addresses are those?
My family, so it's got my sisters and my dad.
Your sisters, plural?
My one sister, but it's
Sorry,
multiple
multiple
emails, yeah.
Just so we're clear, do you recall ever receiving this email?
No, I did not.
When your husband would be on call, would he stay with you, stay someplace else? What was that like?
Yeah, when he was on call, I mean, he'd just be at the house, because his regular job, he worked from our home office, so he was at home until he got a call, and he'd go on calls and come home whenever the calls were done.
Would he frequently be gone for kind of hours at a time?
Yes.
Do you remember learning that Greg Rice had disappeared?
Yes.
How did you find out?
Chris told me that Maegan called and said that Greg didn't pick up the kids from school.
Do you recall when that was?
I just remember it was a Monday. I guess the first Monday of October.
What did you think at that point?
Objection, false speculation, I believe. That's what she thinks.
I'm asking her what she thought. She's not speculating as to what she thought.
So at the time, based again on conversations that we had, Maegan and I just assumed that based on her prior conversations about how he had a drug problem, that he was on a drug binge or something and just left, because she had told me that he'd done that before.
And again, you had spent time not only with the defendant, but also with her children, correct?
A lot, yes.
So did you have any other information or evidence that Greg Rice had a drug issue other than what the defendant told you?
No, everything that I knew about Greg was from what she told me.
I don't have any questions for right now. Preston Britton is going to ask you some questions.
Thank you, Your Honor. What's the noise? Thank you for being here. I know this is difficult for you. When did you, I hate to ask you some of these questions, but are you aware that Chris and Megan continued their relationship after all this went down? I think maybe October, November of 2020.
Yes.
Again, I'm sorry. And he was on the 27th of September. Y'all were communicating. He was telling you that he wanted to stay with it and stay in the marriage. And right, is that right?
Yes.
You may not. You mentioned a phone call with Chris Dontel and Maegan Jackson. Isn't that right? After you learned about what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Were you aware that he put it on? He pushed her to make that phone, being part of the phone call. Did he tell you that?
No.
He didn't tell you she didn't want to do that? You know, be a part of that phone call?
No, because when I said call her, he called her.
Yeah, but you can set that up. He didn't tell you that. Do you recall telling one of the detectives in this case that Chris Dontel called you on the early morning hours of October 3rd and told you you don't have to worry about Greg Rice anymore?
That did not happen.
I get the sense that you seem to want to put a lot in. It's not good. I understand that. Do you put any responsibility on Chris Dontel for his affair with Maegan Jackson?
Absolutely.
You agree that he could have stopped at any point in being inappropriate with her, right?
Yes.
And despite continuing to promise you he was going to stick with you, he continued to engage in acts with her. Isn't that right?
Yes.
You're not claiming to be an expert in anything in terms of forensic, digital forensics or anything?
No.
You didn't take any of the anonymous texts that you received and have those reviewed by an expert, see where they come from?
I did not.
Were you aware of how many years Greg Rice and Maegan had been together on and off? Did you learn that during the course of your friendship?
I mean, I know it was longer than Savannah was alive, and she was about 15 at the time.
And I think you, maybe more so than many, could speak to the idea that marriage and bonds and relationships can be very complicated. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
You have been, you didn't have opportunity to be in the room with Maegan Jackson and Greg Rice during their marriage, did you?
No.
Any of these investigators, when they were talking to you, let you know that sometime leading up to this, that Greg Rice had been on top of Maegan Jackson one night at their apartment?
Objection, Your Honor. That's absolutely hearsay.
Sustained.
Would you agree with me that just because you don't yourself witness something in a person's marriage doesn't mean it's not going on? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And something that happened in the past might not be happening. You know, it could be that their relationship was really bad for 14 years and doing a little bit better in this last year. Would you agree with that? In terms of Maegan and Greg?
Not in terms of them, no. She didn't even refer to him as his name. She called him her baby daddy, her ex.
Okay. And he was both of those things, though, right?
Yeah.
Did y'all, you or Chris feel the need to turn away any of the gifts that she gave y'all?
Not at the time.
You probably wouldn't have. I think that.
Yeah.
I think that. Okay.
Because she did it at a time when it was helpful to us when, we didn't have the funds to, just extra laying around. She would just buy us things. As at the time, when you think somebody's your friend, that doesn't seem weird. But now,
What's the goal, John?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Ready to wrap?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just let's go to the last question and answer. You said at the time her buying you things didn't seem odd. Looking back, what do you think of it now?
the amounts that she was putting in, I felt like was more than our other friend. Like the amount, I can look back and see like that probably was a red flag. But like I said at the time, COVID, the whole world was shut down. We were the only two families that were really hanging out together. We weren't seeing our other friends and things. And so she came across as just trying to help us out.
Do you still think that?
No.
Now, defense asked you, did you know that your husband set up this phone call with the defendant about those text messages? How much time passed between you saying, get her on the phone, and him getting her on the phone?
It was right then and there. At first he was like, well, I'll text her and see. And I'm like, no, call her. And he did.
No time in between?
No.
You testified that you put blame on him for this.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do.
Yes.
Did you leave him when you first got those text for free messages?
No.
Did you leave him when he was arrested?
No.
Did you leave him when he pleaded guilty?
No.
In fact, you're still married to him, right?
Yes.
Do you know what's going to happen in the future?
No. I haven't been able to talk to him privately for 4 years.
Nothing further on.
All right, you may stay. So you break.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd ask that Ms. Dunhall be released from her subpoena.
You better. All right, she's free to go.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we call the next witness, we need a break for some scheduling matters. I'm going to excuse you the jury room, leave your notepads in the jury box. Do not talk about the case either among yourselves. We'll come back out and start.
Right, sorry, hang on. Things are struggling a little bit. I don't know. It's gonna lag a little bit. I don't know why, but yeah. I hope so too. Hawkeyes, that is gonna go the way we want. Hang on.
All right, anything from the state before we take a break?
1 second. 1 second, guys. Google is struggling. Hang on.
Let's take that.
I'm gonna explain. Google is struggling. That if it breaks down again, it will might break down again. Hang on. Trying to see if it's not struggling. If you guys can hear me. If you're, I think your delay, it's a little bit bigger now. I did pause the stream. Let me know if you can still hear me. Robert, it's definitely not you breaking the stream. I hope you guys, can you still hear me? I can you please can you hear me? Because I'm struggling this. I don't know if this is happening again or not. Because I don't know. Oh, I think about this work. It is a weird trial. It is. Okay, you can hear all right. Right. I don't know, because this got slow again, and I'm like, oh, Yeah, so the lady that is in the stream in the stream in the screen right now is the daughter's wife. So yeah, okay, right. I don't know. This pause. This is Google is struggling. Google has been attacked, and I think all the platforms are struggling. So I am trying to get this working, but it might break again. I don't know. I am trying my best, but this is gonna be a crazy day. It's gonna be a wild day until they figure out uh this again. It's yeah, it's gonna be a long night. Hopefully we can zoom through this and maybe finish the day off like that. I'm gonna move part where Dontrell is on the stand, um and then we should go from there, which is awesome. Please just make sure that you press the like button. It does help the channel a lot. Thank you very much for um supporting the channel. We'll play the trial. Hopefully, it will work. Fingers crossed.
Just raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Watch your step. Get you to state your name and spell your last name for the court.
Christopher Allen Dontel, Dontell.
I'm going to have you spell your middle name just because there are a couple different ways to spell Allen.
Allen, Allen.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Obviously, you were in custody at this time, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been in custody?
Since September 9th of 2021.
When were you arrested in this case?
Was arrested November 11th of 2020.
Were you out on bond for a period of time then?
I was out on bond for, I believe, about 10 months.
And what happened to put you back in jail?
The bond got revoked for contact with my co-defendant.
What did you do before you were arrested?
I was a deputy coroner for the Horry County Coroner's Office.
Did you have any other jobs or businesses?
I did. I owned a totally unrelated business in facility maintenance with a business partner in Maryland.
Now, was your case called for trial in December of last year?
Yes, ma'am.
What happened when it was called for trial?
When it was called for trial, I pled to accessory after the fact and conspiracy.
Had you had any conversations with me or any other representative of the state about that plea before you stood up and said that?
No.
Do you have any agreements whatsoever with the state that's causing you to testify today?
No.
Did you plead guilty to those charges because you are in fact guilty of those charges?
Yes.
What are you hoping to get from testifying today if there are no agreements between the state and you?
Personally, I'm hoping to get a, obviously, less time. I'm also hoping to provide closure for the Rice family.
Were you, I'm going to sort of jump around just a little bit because I'm going to go to after the murder and before the murder. Were you interviewed multiple times by law enforcement prior to your arrest?
Yes.
Did you tell the truth during those interviews?
No.
Why?
A few reasons. One, I was still trying to protect my job. I had a family, a house, I had a career, I had a good life, and I'm trying to protect it. I'd also been threatened by my co-defendant. But if I ever told the truth, she'd kill me.
You said one of the reasons is that you were trying to protect the house. You had a nice house and a family. Does your family still live in that house?
No.
And some people might think it odd that a man is afraid of a fairly petite woman. Why were you afraid of her?
I was afraid of her because I watched her kill the father of a kid. And a friend did the same thing to me.
All right. So now, how did you come to meet the defendant?
So, I believe it was early 2018. She came to work for Grind Staff Transport, which is the company that contracts with the coroner's office as well as several funeral homes in the area to do body transport. I had worked for them for several years at that time, and when the defendant came to work for Grind Staff, I was one of the ones that was kind of put in charge of helping to train her. So I taught her things like, different funeral homes have different preferences for how you speak to the families and the questions you ask, and things that you do to the body when you get back to the funeral home to prepare it for embalming. So I trained her as to the preferences of all those different funeral homes, as well as the preferences of the coroners, so that we could serve our customers the best we could.
You sort of explained it, but what does a body transport company do?
Okay, so the body transport company, in the case of a funeral home, say a funeral home calls, we would go to the place of death, meet with the family, ask several questions that are repetitive. You ask the same questions with each body, and then bring the body from the place of death to the funeral home and prepare it for embalming or cremation, depending on the circumstances. And in the case of a coroner call, we would respond to the place of death, and that could be anywhere from a hospital bed to the side of the road, anywhere in between. And we would work with the coroners while on scene just to make their job as easy as possible. We would draw blood if they needed us to draw blood. We would help collect bodily fluids. We would help package evidence, really whatever they needed.
Would body transport workers work alone or in pairs?
Both, depending on the circumstances. On a coroner case, typically it would be alone, because usually on a coroner case there's firemen or police on scene that would help us with the bodies. In the case of a funeral home, most of the time 2 people would go, because the family's there and you want to make sure you're handling the body with care and respect.
Did you ever see the defendant lifting a body?
Thousands of times, yes.
Did she always require assistance?
No.
You said that you met her, I believe you said sometime in 2018. When you first began working with her, did you introduce her to your family?
I wouldn't say it was when I first went to work with her, but I believe the first time she met my family was when we were moving. We were living in a condo off of 38th Avenue in Myrtle Beach, and my wife was pregnant at the time, and we were moving into our new house in Conway, so I was having to box things up and lift the weight on my own because my wife couldn't lift because she was pregnant. And I just happened to be talking about it on one of our death calls one day that I had a lot of work to get done. I was having to box things up. I didn't have much help. And the defendant volunteered to help me lift the boxes and move them downstairs and things like that. So I took her up on that offer, and she came to the condo and helped, and she met my wife.
Do you know where the defendant was living at that point?
She was living in Merle's Inlet.
Who was she living with?
The victim in the case and her 4 children.
The victim being
Craig Rice, yeah, sorry.
When you moved from the condo, where did you and your family move?
We moved to River's Edge Plantation off of Highway 90 in Conway.
At some point, did you and the defendant begin a sexual relationship?
Yes.
How did that begin?
Well, it began, I would say, when there was a time I invited her to lunch at a restaurant called Bricks in Myrtle Beach. She came to lunch with me, and she ordered several drinks. It was the first time I'd seen her drink. She ordered a bunch of amaretto sours and got hammered drunk. After that, and let me backtrack, I was a regular at Bricks. I went there a lot. I went there with my family. I went there after leaving the hospital from autopsies for lunch. I was a regular there. So after the initial time that the defendant met me there, I continued to go there on my own, and I started seeing her there. I would run into her there. She would already be there, and she would typically be drinking by herself. And she started becoming a regular there herself, more so than I was.
This was before your sexual relationship began?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting
No,
this.
no, you're fine. I'm just trying to make sure we keep the timeline correct.
I got you. So then on one of these occasions at Bricks, it was at night, she paid her bill and she told me that she had to talk to me outside privately. So I went outside with her and she told me to get in the van, her work van. So I got in the passenger seat thinking she was going to ask me a question about work or something like that. And she turned the van on and threw it in reverse. I said, "Where are we going?" She said, "We can't talk right here." It was right by the entrance and there were people around. So in the back parking lot of Bricks, it's kind of an incline in the parking lot and it goes up to a service road, like a dead end service road. And she pulled into the service road and parked. And I said, "This looks suspicious, why are we here?" She said, "Have you ever cheated on your wife?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, you're about to." And she climbed over the console on top of me and started to kiss me. And on that occasion, I gently pushed her off of me and said, "I'm not doing this." For the next several days, she kind of made fun of me about it and told me that I was the only guy she's ever met that would have turned down that opportunity. And eventually I didn't push her off of me. I gave in, and that's when it all started. And it became a regular event.
Do you know about when the affair started?
It would have been very late 2019, very early 2020.
Would you say that the two of you were fairly sexually active with each other? Did you have sex a lot?
I don't know, depends on what your definition of a lot is, but yeah, fairly regularly, yeah.
During your time together with the defendant, before the affair started and all the way until you stopped having contact with her, did you ever meet Greg Rice?
No.
Did the defendant ever talk to you about her relationship with Greg Rice?
Yes.
How did she describe her relationship with Greg Rice?
She described it as abusive. Basically that he was a drug abusing woman beater, and that was why she left him.
During your time with her, did you ever see any physical evidence of any abuse that she suffered?
No.
Did you, other than what the defendant said to you, did you have any other reason to believe that Greg Rice had anything to do with illegal drugs?
No.
At some point, did the defendant move into your neighborhood?
Yes.
What?
That's a leading question, I think I'm just.
Go ahead.
Do you know when that was?
She moved into the neighborhood around Christmas time of 2019. I remember that because she had a Christmas tree in her house before she had anything else.
Okay. Once she moved into the neighborhood, did you and your family begin to spend time with her and her children?
Yes.
Okay, let me actually back up. Who moved into her house? Excuse me.
In River's Edge,
Yes.
She had left Greg, and she moved into the new house with her 4 children.
Approximately how far away was the house that she moved into from your house?
Right down the street, within a 2-minute walk, roughly.
And I think I might have just asked this, but did your family start spending time with each other?
All the time.
Did you ever have an opportunity to speak to the children about their father, Greg Rice?
Yeah, I mean,
I did what Red Mike said, seriously.
Yeah, you can't get into what he said, and not allow that question.
Okay.
I mean, you can't say what Greg Rice said.
I didn't ask what Greg Rice said. I was asking about the children, but I can ask it this way. In your time with the victim's children, did you see anything that would indicate that the children were afraid of him?
Just the opposite. No, they spoke very high. They spoke of him the way I would want my children to speak of me.
I get you on. He's talking about what other people said. That's a hearsay. Hearsay, what children said, hearsay.
At some point, did Erica, your wife, find out that you and the defendant were having an affair?
Yes.
And let me ask the obvious question first. Before she found out, did you take steps to hide the affair from her?
Yes.
Did that include lying to her?
Yes.
So at some point, Erica found out about the affair. Do you know how she found out?
I believe it was when she received anonymous text messages.
Were you together with her when she got those text messages?
I believe so, yes. Yeah.
Did she?
That's not an affirmative answer. He said it was pretty certain. Okay, but question and answer.
I can
What
clarify.
I wanted to do is right there.
Just have it rephrase it or check on him, see if he is testifying to what he knows. Can't testify if you're not sure.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Okay. Forgot where I was now. Did she show you any of those? Did she confront you about those text messages?
Yes, she did.
What was your response to her about the text? Do you remember what any of them said?
It was something to the effect of, your husband has impregnated someone. Just thought you might want to know about it.
What did you say when she confronted you with those text messages?
That I had no idea who would have sent that. That wasn't true.
So you lied to her because you were trying to cover up your affair?
Yeah.
At that time, did you have any idea who sent those messages?
No.
Did you and or your wife ever, well, I'll stick with you so it's personal knowledge. Did you ever speak with the defendant about those texts?
Yes.
Did the defendant ever tell you who was sending the text or who she thought was sending the text?
She pretty much immediately said it was Greg Rice.
And I apologize if I've asked you this before. Did you ever meet Greg?
No, as far as, I never shook his hand. We never spoke. I saw him. He would drive through the neighborhood to pick up the kids. I would wave at him, just a friendly wave. That was the extent of my interaction with him.
After those initial texts, did you and your wife remain married?
I'm sorry?
After Erica received those initial texts, that's a hard word, did you guys remain married?
Yes.
Did it cause additional strain on your marriage?
Yes.
For some indulgence for coming on. Your Honor, I'm going to approach with the court's permission with State's Exhibit 153. Did you and the defendant have more than one conversation about who might be trying to leak word of the affair?
Yeah, it was an ongoing conversation over the course of several days.
And were they in-person conversations, text conversations, or both?
Both.
If you could just look at Exhibit 153, it's not admitted yet, so don't read it out loud or anything.
Okay.
But is that a text conversation that you had with the defendant?
It appears to be, yes. I mean, it's been 5 years, so I don't remember exactly. Yeah,
Right.
but
Is that your phone number?
it is my phone number.
And
Yes.
is that her phone number?
Yes.
Did anyone else ever text from your phone?
Not to my knowledge.
And to your knowledge, did anyone ever text from the defendant's phone? Text you from the defendant's phone?
Other than her, no.
Next.
Your Honor, I don't think you can know who texted her phone, so I'm going to strike that in.
He said not to my knowledge.
Overruled out loud.
Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit here. Before your wife got those anonymous text messages, had you and the defendant and one of her daughters and a friend gone to Florida together?
Yes.
Okay, just tell us a little bit about that.
So the conversation began with I was going to go to Florida to two things. The Jacksonville area to look at some convenience stores. There was a contract that I got with my maintenance company every year to pressure wash lots of convenience stores up and down the East Coast. And the client that we worked for had numerous stores in Florida that I had never had the chance to bid. And I had been wanting to go there for a long time to drop a business card to some of the franchisees at the stores and try to get my foot in the door to get the Florida region of the contracts. There's also a really good pizza place in St. Augustine that I like to go to. And I discussed all this with the defendant.
So how is it that you and the defendant and these two other people went together?
Yeah, she said, well, I'll pay for the whole trip. And she booked the trip and we went together and I didn't resist.
Did you tell Erica that you were going with the defendant and the defendant's daughter and her friend?
No, she knew I was going to Florida, but not with them.
It's mentioned. So I'm approaching the State's Exhibit 98. And I'm just going to direct your attention to, I think it's the sixth line. Is that an accurate list of the people who went to Florida on that trip?
Yes.
To your knowledge, did anyone else know who all went on that trip?
No, not to my knowledge.
While you were, and how close in time was that trip to when Greg was killed?
I don't remember the exact dates of the trip. I know Greg was killed on the night of the 2nd. It would have been within a week to 2 weeks, I believe.
During that trip, did the defendant tell you anything about any text conversations or issues she was having with the victim?
Yes. So during that trip, she claimed that Greg Rice was upset because she had left the kids with him for longer than he expected to have them. And then she showed me what appeared to be a text from Greg saying something to the effect of, "You have a storm coming."
Did she show you just that text message, or did she show you like an entire conversation?
She did not show me the entire conversation. Matter of fact, that's the only line I remember.
Did the defendant talk to you about that sort of message?
Well, going forward from that point, she acted as if she was terrified of Greg, and that that storm coming message meant that he was going to abuse her again. She was in fear of him, and it was a constant subject of conversation after that. I don't know how she did it. She's very tech savvy, and she did something with her phone to where she could see Greg's phone screen on her phone, and she could track his location. She could see if he was texting somebody, she could see his screen on her screen from wherever she was. Like I said, it was a constant conversation. Oh, she thought that he was going to use the kids against her. She claimed that he had made comments about trying to take the kids and get child support from her. Like I said, it was a constant conversation after she got that text.
Again, I apologize, I'm jumping around a little bit. At some point, did the defendant tell you that she had become pregnant?
Yes.
Was that before or after the trip to Florida?
Before. That would have been in, I believe it was late August.
Did she tell you who the father of the child was?
She said that the father of the child was me.
At some point during this time period when the anonymous text messages were being sent, was there ever any conversation about a package coming in the mail?
Yes. One of the anonymous texts that my wife received said that something along the lines of all the proof is in the mail, or all the proof, all these messages will be sent in paper form, something like that, in the mail.
And so what conversations did you and the defendant have about this potential package?
I don't remember exact conversations we had about it, but I can tell you when it came, I was home and I received it.
Who was the package addressed to?
It was addressed to my wife.
Was there a return address on it?
There was. It was from an education company in Columbia.
What made you think that that was the package that would be related to the anonymous text?
Because the company that was listed, or the school that was listed as the sender, was not the school that my wife worked for. It was a different one. And combine that with the fact that supposedly this stuff was coming in the mail, I put two and two together, and I opened the package, and
What did you see inside?
I saw several pages of what appeared to be screenshots of text messages, as well as photo collages. And to be honest with you, I didn't even examine it. I knew what it was, and I got in my car and drove it down to the defendant's house and gave it to her.
Did you have any idea what she was going to do with that package?
I did not.
But you said you saw photo. What did you see inside the box?
Photo collages. Some of the pages had screenshots of text messages. Some of them had photo collages. I mean, I noticed that there were some pictures I recognized of myself on there, but I didn't analyze each page or look at all the pictures.
Okay. Now let's move to October 2nd.
Okay.
Starting at about 6:15, the jury has seen evidence that you and the defendant left River's Edge in separate cars around 6:15, 6:20.
That's testimony from the solicitor.
I'm just trying to orient him into.
I sustain the objection, just ask your question.
At some point that evening, did you and the defendant leave River's Edge community at about the same time?
I don't believe so. I believe I was already out working,
Of course, it is.
and when I met with her, if I recall correctly, it was at the Heritage Wildlife Preserve.
Course indulgence. What type of car did you typically drive?
A silver Ford Explorer.
Was that a county car?
Yes.
What type of car did the defendant typically drive?
Typically I believe it was silver, Honda Odyssey minivan.
I'm approaching you with admitted exhibits 136 and 138. So let's start with 136. Do you recognize both the car and the driver in that photo?
Yes, that's the defendant driving her work van.
Okay. And what's the date and time stamp on that?
October 2nd, 6:16 p.m.
Okay, now look at 138. Do you recognize that car?
Yeah, that appears to be me entering the gate at October 2nd at 6:20 p.m. Okay.
And you said entering. Is that you entering the community or leaving?
Yeah, I believe we're both entering in that picture. I'm not sure though. No.
And if you don't know, that's fine.
I don't know.
Okay. Shortly after this time, did you two go to, and I'm just calling it Preserve because the name's too long, the Preserve on International Drive?
We did, yes.
What was the purpose of going there?
Shooting.
Had you done that before?
Yes, many times.
Did you, when you would go shooting, who was shooting? Was it you, was it her, or was it a combination?
If I might backtrack a little bit,
Absolutely.
prior to all of this, I would say total throughout the duration of time that from the time I met the defendant until all of this transpired, we probably went shooting 12 to 15 times. Sometimes it was at the Heritage Preserve, sometimes it was in the woods off of Water Tower Road. I know she shot more frequently than I did, but she often asked me to go with her, and sometimes I did. Sometimes I went and didn't shoot, and she shot. Sometimes I did shoot.
So, speaking directly to the night of October 2nd, who shot that night?
The defendant.
Do you know what kind of gun she used?
I don't know the kind of gun. I know it was a small black gun. I don't know the brand or anything.
How long, you can estimate, and if you can't, that's fine. How long were you in the Preserve that night?
Not long. So I had worked all day that day. I went on call up at the coroner's office at 8 o'clock that morning. I got my first call pretty much right away, and I stayed busy all day. I hadn't eaten much, and I wanted to go to get some dinner. That was my priority. So when we shot, we weren't there more than 10 to 15 minutes. I remember it being muddy, and all I could think about was eating. So we didn't stay long.
So did you guys in fact go to eat after that?
We did, yes.
Where did you go?
Abuelos.
How long were you at Abuelos for? You can estimate or not if you don't know.
I would only be estimating an hour maybe.
What did you do after Abuelos?
So, well, while we were at Abuelos, I remember that a friend of my family who works at a different restaurant, it was her last weekend working there, and I mentioned to the defendant that we should have gone there in Socastee. So we decided that when we left Abuelos, we would stop by there to see her on her last shift. So we left Abuelos and headed for the restaurant in Socastee. When we got there, there was a line out the door, there was nowhere to park, so we ended up not even going there. So we continued on down the road to another friend of ours' residence. He lives on a houseboat in the Osprey Marina. So we headed toward the Osprey Marina.
Did you end up going to that friend's house?
We did not. So backtracking again, I'm sorry. The defendant was acting unusual all day that day. Starting early in the day, she was unavailable for my death calls, which was very unusual because normally when I'm on call, she's right behind me. She followed me around the county, and she would respond to my calls whether I needed her there or not. So it was unusual that she wasn't available part of the day. And then she was very quiet. Even at Abuelo, she was reserved and something was off. So then while we're driving, when we got to the Osprey Marina, I was turning in and she said, "Just keep driving. I don't want to see Charles, who's our friend. I don't feel like dealing with people. Just keep driving."
So what did you guys do?
So we continued driving. I remember we drove down Enterprise Road to Bay Road and looped back around to 707.
Was anything going on between the two of you during that ride?
Not that I recall in particular, but we, at some point I remember I realized that I didn't have any of my supplies that I needed for work. I had a little blue bag that I carried with me that had all the paperwork I needed. It had my gloves, it had things I would need if I were to get a death call, and I had left it in my Explorer at Abuelos. So we went, at some point we went back to get the bag out of my Explorer in case I got a death call, so I would be able to do what I needed to do.
Can I infer then that you and the defendant were driving in her van when you
We were, yeah, we left my Explorer at Abuelos, and I was driving her van.
What happened after you went back to Abuelos to pick up your bag?
She said that she needed to stop by at Myrtle Beach Funeral Home because she had left her glasses there earlier that day.
Was this after typical business hours at a funeral home?
It was late. It was dark, so it had to have been 9 o'clock or so.
How would you guys have gotten into the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home? If it's after hours?
With the key.
Who had a key?
The defendant definitely had one. I may have also had one. I had keys to some funeral homes, but not others. So we had at least one key with us, maybe two.
Okay. So the defendant says she has to get glasses. Did you in fact go to the funeral home?
We did.
Tell me about that. What happened?
So we went to the funeral home, and I assumed she was looking for her glasses. She went to the left. We walked in the back door of the building. She walked to the left, which is back toward where the embalming room is. I went straight up the hall toward the office. At some point, I heard her speaking, presumably on the phone. And then I heard the conversation end. She came to the office. When she got to the office, she had her cell phone out. And I was talking to her, and she wasn't looking up at me. Whatever was on her phone, she was very, had her attention. And she said, "I have to go see Greg."
Did she say why she had to go see Greg?
She did not, but I said, "Well, I'm not going."
Why not? Why wouldn't you go?
Because she was constantly complaining about drama and abuse, and I didn't want to be part of it. She would typically take a friend with her. Her friend Savannah would go with her to Greg's house, or she would go on her own.
Is that based on what she told you, or did you actually witness her?
Based on what she told me.
So what?
I didn't want to be caught up in drama.
What happened when you told her you weren't going to
She said she would just be a few minutes, just go with her.
What happened next?
So I drove her van. We drove toward Greg's apartment complex, which is off of Arrowhead Road.
Let me stop you there for a second. Did you know where Greg lived before this?
I knew where his apartment complex was. I'd been there on death calls before, so I knew roughly, I forget what it was called now, but I knew how to get to the general area.
Did you ever require directions to get there?
No.
What? So I'm sorry, now continue. You headed in the direction of the
We headed in the direction. She called Greg while we were driving, and I guess he had indicated to her that he was outside. She told me that she makes him meet her outside because she's uncomfortable going to his apartment, so he meets her outside of the apartment complex. So we were driving down Arrowhead Road, and I saw Greg on the left side of the road walking towards us, just outside of the apartment complex. And I said, "Is that him?" She said, "Yeah." So as we approached him, I started to slow down, and she said, "Make a U-turn." So I kind of passed him, made a U-turn, and as I pulled up alongside him, she said, because I was going to, he stopped walking, he kind of turned to face our van, and I was stopping right next to him, and she said, "Pull up, don't be awkward." So I said, "Pull up." She said, "Yeah, pull up." So I pulled up so that we had passed him.
What happened next?
She opened the door and shot him.
How many shots did you hear?
A lot.
What did you do?
I froze.
Did the defendant say anything to you at that point?
Yeah. She said, "What are you doing? Help me," cursing at me, "Help me."
So what did you do?
I got out of the van and walked toward the back of the van. Greg was laying right at the back of the van on the side of the road.
What did you do?
She said, "Put him in the back of the van." So I opened the back of the van and we started treating him just as we would treat any other body. And I grabbed the sheet, wrapped it up like a rope, put it underneath his torso to help with leverage. And then in her van, she had what we call I don't remember what we called it, like a sliding board. It was a black plastic backboard, and it was flexible so that you could put a body on it and easily slide it and maneuver it around. I pulled that off of her stretcher, and using the sheet as leverage, we both picked Greg up and put him on the sliding board and put him into the back of the van.
What did you do next?
I reached in and started buckling him. So on the mortuary stretchers that we had put him on, there's two seat belts, and you clip them, and what they do is they hold the body in place. And I started to do that, and she started screaming and cussing at me and said, "What are you doing? We need to get out of here. We need to get out of here." And I shut the back door. Greg was just kind of haphazardly on the stretcher. He wasn't buckled on. He wasn't covered up. And we got in the van, and I hightailed it out of there.
How long would you say you were in the Arrowhead community?
Not long. I mean, it happened fast. And by the time, when I pulled up in front of him, it was like one swift move. Like she opened the door, slid out, and it was pop, 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 pop.
Had the two of you moved bodies before together? You just have to say yes or no.
Yes.
As part of your jobs, was that a fairly frequent occurrence?
Yes, every day.
So you said that you hightailed it out of the Arrowhead community. Where did you go?
We went back to the funeral home.
What happened when you got there?
Well, first of all, on the way there, I asked her, "What just happened? Why did you do that?" And she didn't say much. She told me to go to the funeral home. And I just remember the complete nonchalance. Just like this, it was like a minor inconvenience that we were going through.
So what happened once you got back to the funeral home?
So at the funeral home, when you bring a body in, they have a garage and they have coolers in the garage, and the coolers have one door that you open, and there's either 3 or 4 shelves inside the door. And wheeled Greg in on stretcher. I made a cremation container, which is pretty much a glorified cardboard box. And you use little zip ties to tie it up and make it rigid. And I made one just like we would make for anybody else. And I put it into the cooler and pushed the stretcher up next to it and started to push Greg in. And the whole time she was yelling, "Are you stupid? Are you stupid? Hurry up. We got to get out of here. Hurry up. Are you stupid?" Over and over again. "Are you stupid?"
Did you have any concerns about leaving the victim in a cooler and leaving the funeral home?
So sometimes the coroner's office will use funeral homes as extra storage, like if we're out of room at the morgue in Conway, or if it's, for whatever reason, we might need to leave a body at a funeral home. And typically we put a note on the shelf that the body's on that just says "hold for coroner," and that's what I did. I put a note on it that said "hold for coroner."
Would that have been unusual? A note, "hold for coroner"?
No, that was a regular thing.
During this time that you're taking Greg out of the van and loading him into the cooler, were you able to see him? Was there a lot of blood?
So the night that we put him in,
Yes, the night he was killed.
I did not look. I had draped a sheet across him when we brought him in from the van, and I just pushed him in like he was. Now the next night, I saw him.
Okay,
and
I'll get to that in just a minute.
Okay.
So after you put Greg in the cooler, what did you guys do?
Got out of there fast and went back to her house.
Did you go back to...
I'm sorry.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
On the way back to her house, we had to get my Explorer from Abuelo's. So we stopped to get my Explorer before we went back to her house. On the way to get the Explorer, she told me that if I ever told anybody what happened, she would kill me. And that we had to be in this together. She told me that I have to stay with her that night. I better not leave her. And then we went, got my Explorer. We went to Lowe's food store, International Drive. And I can't remember which vehicle we left there. We left one of the vehicles in the parking lot of the Lowe's food store.
So your Explorer was still at Abuelo's, but you went and picked it up and went to Lowe's? I'm just trying to get that.
Correct, yes.
Where did you go after that?
We went to Maegan's house.
Okay. So at some point, did you go back to the funeral home that night?
We did.
Why?
So I got to backtrack and tell you the background. When we got back to her house, her daughter, Savannah, was watching TV in the living room. I just remember thinking how normal it looked in the house. And I had to pretend that this hadn't just happened. Sorry. Maegan went straight to the shower, and I sat on the couch with Savannah. I'm sorry, Savannah.
Okay, you just have to answer my question.
I'm sorry. Sat on the couch with her. And I tried to make small talk. Like I hadn't just watched her mother kill her father. I'm sorry, what was the question?
You said you would return to the funeral home at some point that night. So you got back to Maegan's house, she's upstairs taking a shower, you're on the couch with Savannah, what happened next?
Okay, so There's an app that we use for the coroner's office. It's called Iris.
Is that
And
IRIS?
I believe it's IRISS.
Okay, thank you. So there's an app. What?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So the Iris app, it tells you what's going on in the county. Only law enforcement, fire, rescue, coroners have access to it. And I remember seeing on that app that there was what appeared to be a pending death on the south end of town. It said it was a cardiac arrest. The call came in as a cardiac arrest. I believe it was a man that was found down in his driveway. And I told the defendant after she got in the shower about that call. I said, it looks like there's going to be a death call, and I can't not go on it. I can't act like something is out of the ordinary. And she said that she wanted to go back to the funeral home anyway because she forgot to get Greg's belongings off of his body.
Did she ever say why she wanted to get his belongings?
I don't know that she specifically said why.
Okay. Did you then go back to the funeral home?
We did.
What happened when you got there?
When we got there, I parked out back. I did not go in at first. It's very late at night at this point. It's got to be probably after midnight. And I parked out back. I stayed in the car. The defendant went into the building. And right after she went in the building, two older people, an older couple, walked around from the side of the building around back. And I had never seen them before. And they were walking toward the door of the building. And I thought it was unusual that they were going into the back door of the funeral home at 12:30 at night. So I asked them, I rolled down the window, I said, can I help you? And they weren't very friendly. They just said, we're here to work. So with everything that was going on this evening, everything in the world just wasn't adding up to me. So I got out of the Explorer and went into the funeral home. I walked back to the left and because I saw the light was on in the embalming room, and they were in there. The older couple was in there, and they told me that they were trade embalmers and that they were there to embalm the body. I still thought it was odd that I had never seen them before, but there was a deceased woman on the table, and they appeared to be embalmers. So I made small talk with them for a minute, and I left. I walked back out to the main hallway to go back outside. At that point, the defendant was walking down the hallway like she had come from the front of the building.
How long would you say the defendant was in the funeral home before the trade embalmers went in?
Not long at all. Maybe less than a minute, probably.
When she came walking up, did you ever see what she had taken from Greg's body?
Yeah, I saw keys and I forget what else, but she had some of his personal effects.
Did she ever tell you what she did with that stuff?
Yeah, so the next morning, I'm still on call. I'm on call all throughout this weekend. The next morning, I had death calls in the morning. She went on, I believe, the first death call I had. She actually did the transport for it. And then she said she was going to be unavailable because she had to make things seem normal for the kids, and she was supposed to take them to Greg's apartment that morning.
So what did she do with the belongings?
So, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I wasn't there, but she told me that she took the kids and Greg's belongings to his apartment, and that she hid his keys and his wallet in a cushion on his front porch and then let the kids find them for some reason. So she hid the belongings that she took off his body on his outdoor furniture, let the kids find them. She also told me that while she was there, she went back out to the road in front of the complex and picked up shell casings that were in the road that had been left there the night before. And this was in broad daylight.
So this is now October 3rd?
Yeah, the morning of the 3rd.
Okay. Did you and the defendant have any conversations about what to do with Greg's body?
Yeah, so I believe what happened that morning after she took the kids to Greg's apartment was she went to her boss's house and dropped them off there because Greg.
I get what he believes.
That's the same. If he knows, he knows. If he doesn't,
Okay, the defendant told me that she dropped the kids off with her boss, Chuck Benjamin. At which point she became available for death calls because she didn't have the kids anymore. I had a death call on Treetop Court off of Bay Road, and the defendant came and did that transport for me. So I went inside and I talked with the next of kin of the deceased. The defendant came in, we did our normal job, preparing the body for transport, got the body on the stretcher together, at which point the defendant took the stretcher to her van, and I went to my Explorer to do the paperwork that goes along with the body to the funeral home. While I was doing the paperwork, the defendant got in the passenger seat of my Explorer. And she told me that I have to get rid of the body.
What did you say?
I said no. I told her that she should ask Jim to cremate the body. Jim was the owner of the funeral home. I told her she should ask Chuck to help her. That I was already way more involved than I wanted to be. And she told me, this isn't about Jim, this isn't about Chuck, this is about you, and I saved your life. This is the least you could do for me.
So did you agree to dispose of Greg's body?
Not at first. It was an ongoing debate all day. With me refusing to do it, and then her telling me that if that body gets found at the funeral home, she's going to kill me. And I'll tell you, I'd known Maegan for a while at that point, and she talked like that all the time. She talked like, I'm going to kill this person or that person. I want to kill my kids. I want to gouge so-and-so's eyes out.
It's not responsible to the question.
Keep going.
I'm going to gouge so-and-so's eyes out. But prior to all this happening, I never took that seriously. But on the night of the 2nd, that changed. And when I heard her say, do this or do that, or I'm going to kill you. I had just watched her kill the father of her kid. I'm going to take it serious.
So did you, in fact, dispose of Greg's body?
I did. So I went to Lowe's, and I honestly, at the time, had no idea what I was going to do with the body or if I was even going to do what she wanted me to do. I didn't want to do it, and when I was there shopping at Lowe's, I didn't know where I was taking him. I didn't know if I was going to go to the water or to the woods or somewhere else. And I just started buying things that I thought might be useful. And it makes me sick to even tell this story. I'm sorry.
Well, at some point, did you go back to the funeral home to get Greg's body?
Yes. So, and if I can fill in a little bit again, I bought the items at Lowe's. Later on in the day, we had a death call in Aner. The defendant was available for it. While we were on the death call, she told me that she was having a miscarriage, actively. And that particular body was going to be stored at the coroner's office at the morgue there. So we left the house where the person died, and we took them back to the coroner's office. And the defendant got out of her van and walked straight into the bathroom of the coroner's office and was in there for, I estimate, 20 to 30 minutes. I handled the body. I took care of what needed to be done. Eventually, she came out of the bathroom and she told me, again, so nonchalantly, well, I'm having a miscarriage, so things are really working out for you. Greg's dead and I'm having a miscarriage. And she told me that I better get rid of that body tonight. Meaning Greg's body.
So at some point, did you go back to the funeral home to get Greg's body?
Yeah, I waited till it was dark. I went back by myself. She had told me to get him out of the county. So I went to the funeral home, and I took my Explorer, and I put him in my Explorer.
What did you transport him in?
So I had grabbed a portable stretcher. I believe I got it out of her van. It was either out of the van or it was out of the funeral home itself. But they have these fold-up stretchers. They fold out and they look like a big, heavy-duty backboard. I took him out of the cooler, I put him on that.
Was there anything covering the stretcher before you put Greg's body on top?
There was. I unfolded the tarp that I purchased and put it on the
Okay. What did you do
stretcher.
next?
I pulled Greg out using the sheets that were still around him from the previous night, and I pulled it over onto the tarp. And at this point, I looked at him because it all seemed so surreal. I just had to see his face and believe it was him.
Well, let me stop you there for a second. Obviously, you saw deceased people on a regular basis. Were you able to tell at that point whether Greg was alive or dead?
He was dead. I knew he was dead. He was dead within a couple seconds of her shooting him.
Okay. So, what did you do after you put him on the stretcher that the tarp is covering?
I strapped him on using the seatbelts on the stretcher, and I took him out to the Explorer and put him in the Explorer. And at this point, I still didn't know where I was going. So I sat behind the funeral home for a few minutes, and I thought about going to Myrtle's Inlet. There's a lot of water down there. And then I decided, I don't even remember my train of thought, but I decided to take him out 501. I knew that the PD River was out on the county line. And I started heading in that direction. So while I was on 501, I just didn't want to be doing this. And all I could think about was, how can I get out of this? I felt like there was no good decision I could make. I called the police, she's going to kill me. Pulled over into a parking lot, and I sat there for a few minutes. It was just a business. It was late night, so an empty parking lot. Just trying to think of how can I get out of this. And eventually I came to the realization that I wasn't getting out of it, and I just had to finish what I was doing. So I looked at the map on my phone, at the river at the county line, and I decided to head out 378. I drove out 378, and there wasn't much traffic, but as I got close to the county line, there was a car that had flown up behind me, and I pulled into a little convenience store about a mile or so before the county line, and I let that car pass. And then I continued out toward the river. When I got there, I actually drove across the bridge, and after you cross the bridge into Marion County, there's a sharp bend and lead to the right in the road. After that bend, you can see ahead for a long ways. And I made sure that there was no oncoming cars, so that nobody was going to pull up on me while I was doing what I was doing. And once I knew there were no cars coming, I did a U-turn. I went back to the middle of the bridge, and I popped the back gate of the Explorer. It took about 10 seconds to put him in the water.
What did you do after that?
Went back to the defendant's house.
Was there any conversation at that point about getting rid of, had you done that?
I came in, and she smiled at me and said, "Did you do what you need to do? What you needed to do?" I said, "Yes," and she said, "Good boy."
Let me just back up on something. Do you know what happened to the gun the defendant used? Did she ever tell you what she did?
She told me that she put it in the intercoastal waterway off of International Drive, along with shell casings and I believe some of his other personal effects.
At some point, did the two of you kind of strategize about what to tell the police if they ever questioned you?
Yeah. So I got a call from Greg Lent with Horry County Police asking me to come in to talk about Greg Rice's disappearance. At this point, he hadn't been found. So I told the defendant that I got that call, at which point she started drumming up this whole story about what we were going to tell him. And that's what we went with. It was not true at all.
Is that the story you repeated to the police
Yes.
time and time again before your arrest?
Yes, I felt like I had no choice.
At some point, did you decide to tell the truth about what happened?
I did.
And what spurred that decision? What made you decide to tell the truth?
Well, the first conversation I had with my lawyer, I told her what I was guilty of, and I said, I will plead to that now and I'll tell the whole truth. But I want my family to be protected. Because as soon as it came out that I was talking and actually telling the truth and not the story, I didn't know what she would do. She would hurt my family. So, back in December, my lawyer arranged for, I guess they came to an agreement with the county that they would put some type of GPS radius around my family. And my understanding of it was that if the defendant, who was on home detention at the time on ankle monitor, were to enter into these areas anywhere near my family, the police would be dispatched immediately. That was the point where I was somewhat comfortable telling the truth.
So did you meet with Ms. Waller and investigators at J. Reuben Law?
Yes.
At the beginning of that meeting, did you tell the entire truth?
At the beginning of the meeting?
Did you come in with a written statement? No, actually.
I did. Well, yeah, I came with a written statement. When I wrote the statement, I didn't tell the whole truth. That was prior to my conversation with my lawyer about the GPS radius and protecting my family. So yes, I came with that statement, but during that meeting, the safety arrangement was made, at which point I told the entire truth.
Of course, it was. Your Honor, may I approach? This is previously admitted, State's Exhibit 158. All right, so this is an aerial view of the Arrowhead complex with the Flint Lake Apartments right in here.
Okay.
I'll hold it closer to you because I know you can't lift your arms. Can you show us where?
So this is Arrowhead right here?
Yeah, that's Arrowhead.
Okay.
And this would be, I think that's the
Clay Pond?
Yeah, that's the Clay Pond entrance.
Okay.
So can you tell us if that's Flint Lake, where along this road
Yeah.
the
So he
victim was
would
shot?
come out and make it right.
Here, I'm just sorry. I'm gonna hold it up. Like,
Yeah.
Tommy, can you just not block the view of the jury? Thanks.
It would have been somewhere in the vicinity of where this it looks like a new construction road is on one side, and then looks like there's a fairway for a golf course on the other side of the road, straight across from the construction.
Okay, so I want to make sure, and then I'll show the jury. This area right here where this construction is.
Correct. Generally right in that vicinity.
Did you see that, Tommy?
Yeah.
Okay. Right by the construction. Court's indulgence for a moment, please. any further questions at this time? I believe Mr. Commingford may have some questions for you.
You can have pause. Go ahead and take a short break before we start cross examination. We'll take about a 10 to 15 minute break. With the notepads in the jury box. We'll bring you back out.
All right, the best part of being rewatching this is that we can skip the break. So we can skip it this break, and we are only gonna be about half an hour behind. So see, I love skipping breaks. Love it, love it, love it. And by the way, StreamYard is fixed apparently, so tomorrow we should be back there. But hey, at least we have a backup from here on out. Whenever StreamYard decides to give up again. Here we go. Are you ready for the cross? You ready for the cross, everybody? It's gonna be spicy. This court has this thing of being very, very spicy and very, very wild. So get yourself ready. Get the popcorn ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Make sure you have your own notepads and no one else's notepads. Cross examination.
Mr. Fontaine, were you married in a church?
No.
Where were you married?
Where?
Yeah.
At Ripken Stadium in Maryland.
Okay. Did you take any vows at that wedding?
I did, yes.
Did you vow to be faithful to your wife?
Yes.
You weren't though, were you?
No.
In fact, there were numerous occasions where you weren't faithful to her. Isn't that true?
Correct.
For a long period of time, several months, you were having sex with Maegan Jackson, right?
Correct.
All over the place. At your house and other places.
Correct.
Okay. And your wife is still living in your house.
Correct.
And nowhere during that time did you tell her what was that.
No.
You didn't say, you know, I've met somebody and we need to separate.
No.
You were having sex with both of them, isn't that true?
Correct.
And that is worse than a lie, isn't it, sir? That's betrayal, isn't it?
I suppose so.
You're the kind of man that will lie and betray his own wife. Isn't that true?
I did for a period of time, yes.
Well, if bad enough one time, how about 15 or 20?
Is the question how about 15 or 20?
Well, let's just say, how many times do you have sex with Maegan Jackson?
I don't know.
Too many to count, right?
I suppose so.
You met your wife, seemed like a fine person. You broke her heart, didn't you?
Yes.
You're the kind of man that's so selfish. He'll hurt others. You crying about your family? Up here on that stand, you crying about your family? You weren't crying about your family when you were doing what you were doing with Maegan Jackson, were you?
No, I was completely blind to everything that was going on aside from Maegan.
Oh, well, let me ask you about that. You blame Lady Jackson for having oral sex with you and other kind of things. You blame her?
I don't blame Maegan Jackson for that. No, sir. I blame myself.
That's a good point. You blame yourself. You're not blaming her. You talked at the beginning like she did this, she did that. You're a grown man. You could have decided to tell her no and never have anything to do with it, could.
I could have.
And you could have stopped anytime you wanted to. Right?
Yes.
Okay. But you did stop. Even after the way you described these events of that night, through your tears, you were still having sex with Maegan Jackson afterwards.
Correct, for a period, yes.
Okay? So now that takes a special man, doesn't it? To see the things you saw and cry all those tears, and you go right back to having sex with her. That's unusual, isn't it?
I don't know if it's usual or not.
Well, it's wrong, wasn't it?
I would say it was wrong.
Yeah, that Bible you put your hand over says it's wrong, doesn't it?
Yes.
That's adultery. You were committing adultery, right?
Right.
And that's in the Ten Commandments that you're not supposed to do it.
Objection, Your Honor. Is there a question on that?
Yeah, I'm asking a question. You understand that it's in the Bible that you don't commit adultery?
I do understand that, yes.
Okay. But you were doing it, right?
I've answered this question several times now. Yes, sir, I was.
Well, okay. Now, let's talk about your statements. You freely admitted, I believe, on direct examination that you have lied to the police throughout this process.
Correct.
Okay. As you sit there today, even you admit that your testimony is unreliable because you're a liar.
What's the question?
You admit that you're unreliable because of the lies you told and the deception you have practiced.
No, I do not admit that.
All right. So you finally decided to tell the truth today, huh?
I decided to tell the truth once I had protection from your client, once my family was protected from her and her threats.
You were scared of her.
Yes,
Why didn't you leave her? Better yet, why didn't you go tell the police?
I was in jail during this time.
But I'm talking about that period in between. When you saw all this happen, you, at that point, based on your testimony, you hadn't done anything wrong, right? When you get rid of the body, your testimony is you didn't have anything to do with the shooting. You didn't know it was going to happen, right?
That's correct. I did not know the shooting was going to happen.
Okay. So you had no agreement with Maegan Jackson to commit a crime until afterwards when you took the body and you did that by yourself, didn't you? She went with you.
We both picked up the body from the scene of death
Who took
immediately
the body?
after the death occurred.
Who took the body to the river?
I took the body to the river.
She was not with you in that trip?
Not when I took the body to the river.
Okay. Now, what I'm saying is, you're a grown man. In fact, you were a county officer. True? Deputy
True.
Carter was a county officer.
True.
And you knew all these, you knew most of these policemen, didn't you?
Several of them, yes.
They were friends.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, you were friends with the policemen?
I wouldn't say we were friends. I worked alongside them frequently.
Well, they knew who you were. You knew who they were.
Some of them, yes.
Part of your job was working with police.
Objection, Your Honor. He's not asking questions. He's simply making
Ask your question.
Isn't it true that part of your job is working with the police?
Yes.
So what stopped you from going to one of your acquaintances and telling them what happened?
The fact that your client told me that if I did that, she would kill me, and I had watched her kill the father of her kids, so I believed her.
Well, why don't you go tell the police that part of the story?
Why don't I?
Yeah, you have her picked up by the police before you did anything wrong.
Because I was afraid she was going to kill me if I told the truth.
You don't expect this jury to believe that you were scared of that woman to such an extent that you wouldn't report what you consider to be and are now telling us is her misconduct. You're that big of a scaredy cat, are you?
What was the question?
Are you scared? You said you did things wrong, but you scared of that woman sitting over there.
Absolutely.
My question is, as a county officer, why did you take matters into your own hand and report her and see that justice was served on her?
I've answered this question twice already, and the answer is because she told me she would kill me, and I had seen her kill the father of her kids, and I believed that she would kill me as well.
Okay. So, but nothing kept you from reporting it except your fear.
Objection, Your Honor. This has been asked and answered multiple times.
I got him on crossing the
Okay,
mark.
go ahead. Ask your question to you.
Nothing except your fear of that little woman there prevented you from reporting these incidents to the police. True or false?
That's true.
Okay. Now, let's look at your guilty plea. You remember that pretty well?
I believe so.
Okay. And let me take you through what I believe happened there. You remember who the judge was?
Who the judge was?
Yeah.
Alex Hyman.
Yeah. So you decided at the last minute, right as Ms. Waller was standing up, make an opening statement, that you were going to plead to something, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And so once you said that, they shifted into a guilty plea instead of a full-blown trial. Isn't that true?
Correct.
Okay. And part of that process was to stand you up in front of the judge and put you under oath.
Correct.
Okay. So in other words, you swore in in that setting to tell the truth to a sitting circuit judge.
Objection, Your Honor. Still not a question.
He was asking the questions, right?
The judge was, yes.
Judge Hyman was asking the questions.
Yes.
And you were responding, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And you told him you were going to tell the truth. Didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. And then what happened was Miss Walter stood up in front of the judge, and she gave a rendition of the facts that was going to be a part of the guilty plea. Isn't that true?
I believe so, yes.
I don't know if he cut you off.
Answer the question.
So you were there. You saw it now. That y'all are talking to the judge. Didn't you?
What's
Your
the
Honor,
question?
Your Honor, I'm just going to ask that he ask questions
Yeah,
rather than
you-
make statements.
Didn't
Ask
I
the
say
question.
I said, didn't you stand in front of the judge after Ms. Walter had spoken to the judge?
Yes.
Right. And didn't she say, in your presence, that you had told her you didn't know what happened to Greg Rice the night that he was brought to the funeral home? You didn't say that, did you?
I don't recall saying that. Do you have something I can read?
Yeah, let me give you something.
Can I see what you're showing him, please?
Yeah. I'm not gonna show him this because I'm just loving what this guy, right? It's your face. I need one of these. More business. For identification. Yes. For identification. Yeah, I just turned there for, I'm not gonna ask you about it, he might want.
Defendant's one more.
For identification. Mr. Donfeld, you're welcome to look at all this document. It is certified by a court, whenever it's present, you're guilty. You like this lady here, take everything down?
I'm familiar.
That's
Yes.
what it's in. Okay? Now, I'm interested in page 7, starting at line 15. I'll just read that and I'll let you start. Oh gosh, hey, we need to get his handcuffs off. He can't. I'm sorry. Let's see. 15. Can you see it well enough to read?
What's that?
Can you see it well enough to
I
read?
can, yes, sir.
Line
18.
17 through line, okay, pages. So pages.
On which page?
Page 8.
Page 8. And what line?
Let's just go. Let's go to line 16, beginning with according to.
What date is this statement from? This is from the.
Page on, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Give me just a second. All right. I'll call this to jury, you know, take wrong thing. I'll be able to do it. I'll apologize.
Defendant's 2 for identification. If you're showing him something different, can I see it, please?
Excuse me?
If you're showing him something different, may I see what you're showing him, please?
No, I showed you when I get ready to show you.
You just switched out the exhibit.
I've got mine up there. I should, but what you saw went over, you did mine, I showed you mine. You can see this.
I'm asking to see what you are going to show Mr. Gundow.
You boys trying to find it for me, I'm going to something else. Yeah. Still got it wrong. Yes, sir. All right. Your Honor, can I show him this one, even though it has lines on it.
If it's not an exhibit.
Yeah. Come in, Judge. Brief. Hey. Hey, no, you need to- okay, look, look.
And it's brief identification?
And it's- I don't think, I don't think that's right, the one. This is that same transcript we've been talking about. Okay? And, this is part of what Ms. Walker was saying. You can look around and see all that. This is her talking to the judge, and I'm interested in 17, 18, and 19.
17, 18, and 19.
Yeah, okay. See if that refreshes your memory.
It doesn't really refresh my memory. What exactly are we looking for?
Doesn't it say that you told Ms. Walker?
Objection, Your Honor.
I think that's it.
No, that's not in the evidence.
Well, the fact of the matter is, you told, did you not tell, did Ms. Walker not tell the judge, told the judge, you claimed you didn't know.
Objection, Your Honor.
The same, he said he didn't recall. And he said that did not refresh his memory.
Have to come out another way. Do you then deny, sir, that you told Ms. Walker you didn't know what happened to Craig Rice that night? Do you deny that?
Objection. Just as to which time? If we're talking about the
Overruled, I'll allow that.
You read this, do you deny it?
Do I deny that I told Miss Walter
That you didn't know what happened to Craig Rice that night?
on what date are we speaking of when I spoke with Miss Walter?
Late October 2nd, 2020.
I didn't speak with Miss Walter on October 2nd.
No, you're talking about October 2nd, 2020. That's denied.
Right. I'm sorry, I just don't understand what you're asking me. You're asking me when which conversation that I had with Miss Walter are you referring to?
No, you're not having a conversation with her in this one. You've already had that conversation.
I apologize. I really apologize. I'm just not following.
But, what's your objection?
That's not a question. He's
Judge.
making statements, and also Mr. Donatello simply
Well,
told
he's asking back questions. My understanding is at his guilty plea, you recited the facts, and that was your facts. And he's asking him, does he recall that?
and he's already said he does not recall, and that doesn't refresh his
All right,
recollection.
let's ask him the question.
Judge, I'm going to stay on this point.
All right.
If we're here for 100 years, because this is an official transcript of his guilty plea, it recites what Ms. Walker said. It's crucial to put into evidence that he already told another
Well, you
lie.
can put the transcript into evidence.
All right, but I need to talk to you about that. Can I put it in for impeachment purposes only and not as an exhibit? I mean, I don't want to introduce any evidence.
Well, then don't put it in, but you're not going to be able to read it.
Judge, I'd like to set this witness aside for a minute and call Ms. Walker.
Let's finish the cross-examination.
Your Honor, I'd like to delay for a few minutes, see if I can get a hold of Judge Hyman.
Hold for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to take up a matter of law. I'm going to choose you back to the jury room in just a few minutes.
Right, let's see what happened.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I get the impression that you want to impeach him on a document, which is a transcript, she says does not refresh his memory. You want to get that transcript to the jury, but you don't want to introduce it as evidence because you want to be able to close last and closing arguments.
All I want him to do is read 2 lines from the transcript.
When you go to, and he read it, and that refresh his memory. The only way it can be published to the jury is if you introduce it into evidence.
Well, I'd like you to review the transcript.
For what reason?
Well, because there's Ms. Walker and I both know she made that statement to the judge. And we looked up, so.
Well, I think you're caught in a choice. If you want that information to go to the jury, you're going to have to put the transcript into evidence, which you're entitled to do. But you're not entitled to get something to the jury for the jury's review without it being in evidence.
I believe the law is if I use it for impeachment purposes, it's not introducing substantive evidence.
I need the authority on that.
Okay.
All right?
Well, I need about 5 minutes right now.
All right, I'll do that too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, we'll stand in recess for about 10 minutes, okay?
All right, and the good thing is, again, we can skip, but we might not be able to skip that much. But this attorney is a little bit shady, not gonna lie to y'all. I mean, he wants to introduce something that the judge, he doesn't want to introduce as an evidence, but he wants to use for impeachment, and he's not budging, and he's not taking what the judge is saying. It's just wild. But they are back now because we were able to skip. So let's listen.
It might get a little risky the way I read it.
Well, it's already, I think, Rule 608.
Yeah, it's,
You can ask him if he's got a prior inconsistent statement. If he admits to the prior inconsistent statement, that's it. It doesn't come in. If he denies it, then you can introduce the prior inconsistent statement to impeach his testimony. But you're not going to be able to use it to impeach his testimony without introducing it to that.
that's correct.
Yeah.
I live, yeah. So,
We're gonna move on past that right now. We need to go down and try to figure out how to skin the cat.
I understand.
And to make us get over that part for us.
All right.
But we might put the transcript in later. It's a public document. It's a judicial proceeding. It's not hearsay. It's admissible in its own right.
I understand that. That's right.
And the state would have no objection to that admission.
But you're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to get it to the jury to impeach this witness's testimony without introducing it into evidence.
we understand that.
All right.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you for taking the clarification.
All right, anything from the state before we bring the jury in?
No, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
No.
All right, let's bring the jury in. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Make sure you have your own notepads and nobody else's notepads. Ms. Brittany, you continue with cross-examination.
Quick on Bill. Is your testimony today, if you don't remember what was said, if you're guilty?
My testimony is not that I don't remember what was said at the guilty plea.
So you do remember, you told Ms. Walter that you know what happened to Greg Rice that night?
Objection.
Or do you admit
Oh,
that?
no, he said he recalled. I'll allow that question. Go ahead.
Could you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Okay. Do you admit that you told Ms. Walter, as part of the guilty plea, when you didn't know what happened to Greg Rice the night of October 2nd, 2020? Or did you not say that?
I don't recall saying that.
Well, that's just another lie, isn't it, Mr. Tonsell? That's the biggest thing in your life, that guilty plea.
My answer would be no, it's not a lie.
Oh, it's not a lie. Do you deny that?
I don't recall saying
That's
it.
been asked and answered. Let's move on.
So you don't recall what was said about you in your guilty plea?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Same question.
Yeah, I think I cut you off on that.
No.
So that was, the guilty plea is a significant event in your life, right?
Yes?
You never pled guilty to anything before, okay?
No, I never.
So, you were paying close attention to what was going on, I assume.
I was doing my best, yes.
Okay. And you were answering Judge Hyman's questions well as you could.
Of course.
And did he ask you if what Ms. Walker said was true and accurate? You said, yes, sir.
I don't recall specifically.
Because if you said no, sir, he wouldn't have taken the plea. Isn't that true?
I don't know. I've never done this before.
Is it more likely that you said yes, sir, or no, sir?
Objection, Your Honor. He said he doesn't recall.
Sustained.
All right, let's move on a little bit. Now, this business of you having an affair with Ms. Jackson, that ended up producing a pregnancy, didn't it?
Yes.
Okay. You got no qualm about the fact that's your baby, right?
I've never been 100% certain in my heart.
You found out about it. You started making fun of her. You contacted Frank Howard, didn't you? And told him that you were going to get a trip to Florida out of this.
What's the question, sir?
I said, you contacted Frank Howard about her pregnancy. And y'all had some laughs over it. And you said, by the way, I'm going to get a free trip to Florida out of this. And then you went to Florida. After the pregnancy was found to term. That's true?
I don't recall. This was 5 years ago,
You don't
sir.
recall that you made fun of your mistress with a friend and that you got a free trip to Florida out of the abortion question?
I don't recall that.
Did you send her memes showing abort on it? You don't deny wanting the baby aborted, do you?
I don't deny that we had agreed that she was going to get an abortion, yes.
You wanted the abortion, right?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah, because you wanted to keep having sex with your wife and with Miss Jackson. You didn't want her to show it. Isn't that true?
That's not the reason.
Well, let's put it like this. Did you do your wife the courtesy of wearing a condom when you were having sex with Miss Jackson? You don't remember using a condom or not? You don't remember anything, do you?
Are you talking about a specific occasion?
Any occasion. Did you always use a condom to protect your wife from what may happen in the sex act or from her getting pregnant? Did you always use a condom?
No.
All right. So you had unprotected sex with her. And as a result of it, there was a pregnancy.
I believe I already answered that question as well.
Now, I think you testified earlier that you were, quote, hoping for a lesser sentence. Isn't that true?
Yes.
In this courtroom, you said that, so you have to remember that. That just happened about 45 minutes ago, so you remember saying that, don't you?
I do remember saying that, yes, sir.
Now, you have a history throughout these issues of trying to get what you want. That's part of your MO there. You know, you wanted to have sex with your wife, and you want to have sex with Maegan Jackson. Not only did you want it, you got it for months. True?
True.
True.
And I'm sorry, but I feel like I've already answered that 5 or 6 times as
You know,
well.
I want to hear it again. That's what I'm saying. You don't tell me what questions to ask.
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, let's move on.
You're not going to start crying, are you?
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, let's move on.
Now, this, you came in with a, forget the plea agreement for right now. You came in with a handwritten statement when you were sitting down with the police. Isn't that true?
Correct,
You
yeah.
don't remember that?
True, I remember that.
Okay. You just testified to it on correct examination.
And I just testified that I remember that.
Okay, you look like you weren't so sure.
Objection, Your Honor.
You sure?
Let's move on.
Is that true?
The question is, am I sure again?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sure.
Now, that statement wasn't true, was it?
Which statement?
The written statement.
The written statement was not true in its entirety, no.
Okay, in other words, in the written statement, you said that you weren't around for any killing. That Miss Jackson came to you and told you she had killed Mr. Rice. Isn't that what you said in the written statement?
Yeah, I also have already testified today that I did not tell the complete truth until my attorney arranged with the police to put a GPS safety area around my family. And once that was in place, I told the complete truth, and I've done so ever since.
Well, you've admitted here, and this is one example of it, is not to produce some false statements to significant officials like the police.
I did admit that already, yes,
And
sir.
this is just another example.
Objection, there's no question there.
Yes,
That's
it
your
is.
question.
Isn't it?
I would say yes, that is another example.
Now, you testified that you're worried about your family, right?
Correct.
You weren't worried about them when you were having sex with Maegan Jackson, were you?
She had not threatened to kill me at that point.
Hold on a second. You may not remember this, let me ask you anyway. On the night of the killing, or sometime in connection with the date of October the 2nd, 2020, did you come in contact with that you certified the death of a body that belonged to Mr. Fisher?
I don't recall, sir.
Do you remember talking to the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home people about the paperwork that hadn't been properly filled out? Does that ring a bell?
I'm not denying that took place, but it does not ring a bell, no.
Do you remember what you did with that body?
I already testified I don't remember that body. I handled 600 bodies, sir, and this was 5 years ago.
Could you take him to the county morgue and the coroner's office?
Objection, Your Honor. He said he doesn't remember.
I'm not accepting that.
I'm not allowed to disclose.
Could you take him to the county morgue there in the coroner's office?
I could have, yes, sir.
And do you know, sitting here today, what happened to that man? Where he was?
I don't recall that particular case.
And it happened the same day of what you described as the killing of Red Rice, didn't it?
I don't recall that particular case.
You don't recall hardly anything, do you?
I recall quite a bit, but not any of the last several questions that you asked me.
You don't recall anything I'm trying to ask you that's got any significance. You just say you don't recall. Isn't that what you've been saying?
Please explain the significance, because I would love to answer it properly so that everybody understands what you're asking and what my answer is.
It's a mystery.
It is.
It's the same day. In non-street testimony, there's going to be a cooler that Mr. Rice goes in. So, for some reason, that body doesn't go to Myrtle Beach Funeral Home. It goes to the morgue, and nobody I know knows what happened to it after that. Do you? Do you guess? You don't recall.
I don't.
Regret?
Court's indulgent for one moment. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm sorry. Mr. Britton brought up the Ten Commandments. I think we all know that thou shalt not commit adultery is one of the commandments. Do you know if thou shalt not kill is also a commandment?
I do know that that is a commandment. Yes.
And yet did the defendant break that commandment?
Yes.
Take that question. She doesn't need to characterize what we're doing. She asked you a question.
Overruled.
Mr. Britton asked you if you lied multiple times and you admitted that you had. Did the defendant also lie multiple times?
Yes.
Mr. Britton seemed to poke fun of the fact that you were afraid of a quote-unquote little woman. Can you explain to the jury why, despite her apparent diminutive size, you are afraid of the defendant?
The primary reason is because I watched the defendant murder Gregory Rice by shooting him several times, and then she told me she would kill me if I didn't do what she asked in helping him get rid of her and to never tell the truth about what happened. The answer is yes, I'm afraid of her regardless of her diminutive size.
And then there's been quite a bit of questioning about what happened at the time of the plea and then leading up to your conversation with the state a couple days later. I think it would have been 2 or 3 days later. Was the defendant out of custody during that time period when you made the plea all the way up until sometime earlier this year?
I believe so. To my personal knowledge, I believe she was out on bond during that time.
Do you have the same strike back? Mr. Britton was just asking you about, I don't even remember his name, Mr. Fisher or some decedent. Is there something about the night of October 2nd that makes you remember that night when you don't remember one decedent out of 600 that you've dealt with? Did that make sense to you?
Something particular that happened that night is the murder of Gregory Rice. I recall that and everything that goes along with that. But this Mr. Fisher, assuming that he died that date, was not, I didn't witness his death, and I didn't I wasn't provided any details to recall specifics about that case, so I simply don't recall that particular case without some type of refresher.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, you may sit down.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and break for the evening. There will be no pads in the jury box. Do not discuss the case even among yourselves. Don't conduct any independent investigations. Don't watch the news. And ask us to please be back at 9:15 tomorrow morning, and we'll start. Thank you very much.
Just saying what time they will come tomorrow, and we'll see what happens. And yeah.
All right, anything from the state before we recess for the evening?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
All right, I'll probably take the bench at 9:30. Look at what we're going to next week.
The state will be finished, I would believe, by lunchtime tomorrow at the latest.
I don't know. Even if you're done at lunchtime, you still have the defense if they put something up, closing arguments, closing charges, and deliberations.
I was just letting you know when the state is going to be done with its
So I
case.
think we're probably going to be coming back next Tuesday. I need to go ahead and notify court administration.
Okay.
All right?
Your Honor, may we approach just quickly?
Come on up.
Yeah, no, they don't even. This is just such a different courtroom. They don't have the seal to put the camera on. Normally, we just go to the wall or something. Yeah, we do have a judge. So, state my arrest tomorrow at lunchtime. Well, their time anyway. And then if the defense starts, so we might be having a verdict next week at some point. So we thought we were gonna have today or today tomorrow, but we're not. But that's okay. It is okay because we're still gonna carry on too. But tomorrow morning we will start with Karen Reid closings. I do want to follow that because I've been following the case on, and it is spicy, and I want to see that. I want to see the closings, and then the verdict. We're gonna be on verdict watch. I'm not gonna do any instructions from Bev. Instructions are too boring. I'm not gonna do them. Sorry, my apologies. But then we're gonna jump on this case, and then later on the day we are gonna do the Donna Alderson hearing. So we are gonna be busy tomorrow. How are the kitten doing? What kitten?
Take the bench at 9:30 tomorrow.
Court is finished. How do I change this? I do not know to. Oh, not share the screen anymore. Okay, right there. Oh my days, no, that stays way too big for me. But oh well, it's gonna do it tomorrow. It's gonna do it till tomorrow. We're gonna back in our regular space. So I did not understand how are the kitten doing. Iris, sorry, I do not have any cats. If you're asking me, but yeah, but you guys, thank you so much for being here, hanging out with me. Even though we had a very crazy day, it was amazing day. You guys did help a lot, and my apologies for the breakup of the stream. We end up did see Lori Vallo being having the kitchen camera. If anyone no, I do not know anything about that. Sorry about that. Sorry, Irish. I don't know anything about that. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow at the normal regular place because I don't know how I feel about me being in this. But at least it's a good picture of me and not a crazy one. But anyway, have a great night. Oh, some of our usual addicts are here. Yeah, they are. But I don't know about a kitten camp if they know anything about it. But anyway, thank you very much for being here with me today. I really, really appreciate your company. Sorry, apologies for the hiccup, but we got there in the end. Have a great evening, afternoon, wherever you guys are. And I'll see you all tomorrow morning back to our regular program. Have a good one. I don't know how the stream is going to end, but I just pressed the button. Okay. Apparently, I just pressed this button.